Any studio complexes. Stopped raining. It was really chucking it down earlier on, but I'm going to show you some of the changes that has been to the studios of late over the years. Obviously, across the way here, where I am, if it's turned, let's see just now. Across the way there, where you've got to the Donatoni, it's like a Panettone food complex, sort of like distribution centre. That used to be British MGM Studios back in the day. So that was British MGM. That is the scenes where they filmed over there. It'd be just roughly around about where you've got that part with the glass panels there, was where one of the sound stages, which I do believe was sound stage 4, right at the end of Holiday on the Buses, you see Stan looking down. I always take it to be, it was supposed to be the depot that he knocks down, because you hear Blakey's ghostly laugh in the background. Some people argue and say, well, we don't know that for sure, but it would make sense for it to be the studios. How he's got something, for the sound stage, he actually meant to have been the bus depot. He knocks it down and he's got a big smile on his face. That's what makes me think it was the actual, it was meant to be the depot. Now, as I walk along here, you can see across the way there the size of it. Obviously, if I go across, I'll show you. It has got one or two sort of like murals up to depict the studios once stood there. You've got Where the Eagles Dare, sort of like plaque. The wall that's down here where I'm pointing to, that was actually there when the studios were there. That's the one thing that actually remains. I've actually got one of the bricks from the wall. You can see sections of it missing. I've got the actual brick from the British MGM Studios, as was the front of the studios. There's another. You've got another one across here, which is the spate or the sail going when I get along to it. These were all films that were actually filmed in the British MGM Studios. The British MGM Studios were here up until they closed in late 1970, December 1970. That was when the then Tory government wanted to make MGM, who were American companies, they wanted all American companies or foreign companies that were making films in Britain to pay a super tax. That put off MGM, so they closed down the big massive studios here. They lay dormant until the summer 1973 when they were starting to knock this down. So Holiday on the Buses at the end, when you see him knocking down the building and he's doing his demolition work, that was came about because they had initially written another ending to Holiday on the Buses. The original ending was to be, you would see Stan and Jack working as working on road repairs. I think Stan was driving a tarmac in the road, and Jack was operating the stop-go signs and all of that. But they'd done away with that ending when the opportunity came to film here, when they heard they were knocking down the studios around that time. And so they changed the ending to what we see today. Hello, Anthony. So anyone that's watching as well, if they want, obviously these things take money to come to this. So you can always fund me. You can donate. There's a button at the side if you want to show your appreciation. Don't donate some money. Keeps me these trips possible. Obviously these cost money to come to these down to these for these sorts of events and such like. Now across the way there, you've got. I'll zoom in for you. You've got that's the 2001 Space Odyssey, filmed across here as well. And also across here you've got Inn of the Sixth Happiness, which was a big film in 1958. So it's all there. And the roundabout further along, just where you've got the other plaque, would be where there used to be a really great Art Deco clock tower, which actually remained, I think, till about the late 70s. There was a fight to try and preserve it, because it was a really iconic structure, but it actually sadly got knocked down. That would be over the roundabout where this plaque is for I'll show you that just now. There you go, you've got Under Capricorn that was filmed there as well. So also there was a lot of TV stuff was filmed up here. Filmed a lot of ITC stuff up on this site. They also filmed Ivanhoe as well, the TV series from the late 50s, early 1960s. And the hill that's really diminished a lot where the castle was built on is up and over in that direction in the middle of what is now a housing estate. But the British MGM was so large it spanned from around about the level here all the way along here. Now back in the direction I've just walked from, over in that direction there, we've got the new Sky Studios, which are growing by as we speak. They've got permission to actually extend their site. And it's absolutely massive as it is, so that means that there's 3 active film studios actually in Borehamwood now, so it actually has gone up a bit more again. Back in the day, talking about back in the 50s, 60s, you had the Elstree studios where the On the Buses films were to be made later on. You had the ATV television studios went on to become Central TV, then BBC Elstree Studios where EastEnders is filmed now. You also had a studio complex at the studios called Gate Studios. It used to be right by the train station, the Elstree and Borehamwood train station across the road from the train station. And obviously you had that studio complex I was talking about there, the British MGM. So at one time you had as many as, I think it was 4 film studios actually in Borehamwood, and that's how it became known as, it's often referred to as Britain's Hollywood, because there were so many studios complexes in such a small area. Obviously that had fallen down to 2, but with the Sky Studios opening, it's now gone back up to 3, so it's still so rich in the film and TV industry. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, I'm doing fine, Neil. So just heading on down into the town centre again. As I said, if anybody wants to donate money for the likes of these trips, I will hopefully do more videos. I'm down here for the last goodbye event, the On the Buses event, that's being held here on Saturday and Sunday. So you, by all means, you can still come along. You can meet outside the Elstree Studios on Shenley Road and pay on the day if you want to do that. I do believe you can get a ticket for 2 days as £15, £10 for our 1 day locations tour and other bits and bobs that are going on. You can turn up and the money will get taken on the day. I'm not actually organising that. That's a friend of mine that's organising it. I'll just be leading people through the locations tours of the day and lending my expertise on the subject. So heading in towards the town centre now. There's a couple of other things that I want to point out to people here. Up in this direction here, if you head up in this direction and head on into the up there, that will take you, that's Manor Way, that will take you up to the laundrette, where the laundrette scenes were filmed from Mutiny on the Buses. Well, on the buses, and then they filmed scenes up there from Mutiny on the Buses as well, where they contact the policeman on his beat. That was also filmed up at Manor Way as well. So heading on down. Hi, Queen Abigail. Sorry if I don't see people straight away. I'm trying to film at the same time as sort of like talking as well. So heading on along and into the Borehamwood Town Centre. As I say, the last goodbye event taking place down here tomorrow and Sunday. Be walking tours around Borehamwood. And Sunday we're hoping to do walking tours out and around Shenley, where they filmed heavily in the spin-off films as well. Even since I first started coming down here in search of these filming locations and organising the On the Buses events, it's changed a heck of a lot down here. Across the road there, where we've got those flats, you can see the flats across the road there. There used to be Oakland's community college there. That's now gone and replaced by flats. And you used to see it helped me pinpoint the Bullhead Road locations, which is very heavily used in filming on the buses we're coming up to now. And we used to know from watching the scenes from on the buses when the buses towing the motorbike up the hill here, which you can see in the distance there. And you used the camera look down, and right where this block of flats is here is where Oakland's community college once stood, replaced by those flats there. So heading on down into the centre of Borehamwood. And I'll just point out on the rest of this video, I'm using this to point out one or two interesting things that have changed just recently to do with the studios that are here at the moment. One is good, sort of good news if you're a locations fan like me of the On the Buses films. The other is not so good news. So you have to keep watching and I'll explain what those are. And if you've got any questions you want to ask in the meantime until I get to the next point of interest, just ask up and I'll answer them as soon as I get see the questions on the screen there. These are all new, these flats here as well. These have propped up in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe even not as much as that, maybe about 3-4 years. And across the way there, that building you see in the Like the Lads film, that's the library that's film was actually working in, and Bob gets a book dropped on his foot. That's actually across there in that building there. It's not a library now, it's ceased being a library, I would say about maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago maybe. It's now being used as like a old community centre. It has like a sort of like a second-hand shop in there and everything like that. And then across next to that, you've got a walk-in centre, which was handed to me one year when I was down here. I remember I had a bad case of cellulitis in my legs. I had to go in there and they treated me well, gave me a quick fix of medication to help me with my legs and put me on the road to recovery just away there in the treatment centre. The Pontins won't be saved, Abigail. I hate to break it to you. The Pontins is history now. The Britannia group that run it, they've made it clear they've killed off the Pontins name. It will probably lay dormant for, like other Pontin sites that have been closed, that probably lay dormant for about the next maybe 5-10 years or such like. Probably left to decay It won't reopen in any sort of shape or form. If it does, the best scenario is if it gets sold on to another holiday company that wants to keep it as a holiday camp. It'll get bulldozed and they'll build out, they'll put their own mark on it and their own way, because the site is in such a rundown state. It's been left to rot and decay for so long now. Look, even before the point of it closing, basically. Basically, it's yeah, that's where I'm heading to in a little bit. I'm going to be heading there just now. That's one of the locations that I'm going to take in on this video. Yeah, the Pontins won't reopen in any way as is. It won't open as a Pontins. If it does get sold on to another holiday camp company, they'll totally bulldoze it, because the buildings are in such a state of disrepair. Basically, it's been underfunded for perhaps 20, 25 years. It's been rotting away. It's been open, but it's been in such a terrible state of decline, and it's been allowed to happen because basically the companies that have owned it since Pontins, since Fred Pontin owned it and sold it on, they've just been using the whole site, the whole Pontins name as a cash cow, basically. They wanted to take as much money as they could out of it, but they didn't want to put any money back in refurbing it or anything like that. Sad, but that's just the reality of it, really, and that's how it's got to the sad state that it is in today. I'm not too sure about that, Anthony. It's quite feasible, because obviously BBC took over from the Central Studios. I think it was like in the 1990s, so it is quite possible. I wouldn't say for sure it's a definite or anything like that. Now, here we've got is the Elstree Studios right here. Just through there you can see the top of them. I'm going to stand here and do it, although you get a better view round the corner, but I don't want the security staff to come along and start moving me along when they see me here with a camera. So basically, where you've got the Elstree Studios sign there, which you can see it just poking out there, Elstree Studios. Now up above that, sort of like there, those buildings there, they are studios there. I think they're the studios of 5, 6 and 7. Now, for a long time, they've been earmarked for demolition because they were built with rack. And they had like asbestos in them as well. So they were, the word was they were going to be pulled down, which would have been a real shame. For the simple reason is that along the side of them is a corridor where they filmed scenes in from Holiday on the Buses, so that would have been demolished as well, where you see Olive going along following a Scotsman in a kilt saying I'll follow her, and where you see Stan talking on the phone to Arthur about coming down into a holiday, and when you see Stan and Jack dancing around before they go in and start mocking Blakey for his dance classes. That was all filmed in a corridor there. Also at the front of this building here, there's a couple of doors that sort of like lead in for them to take stuff onto the sound stages. That was actually used as the entrance to the goods store where they get the toilets and the paint from and Holiday on the Buses. That was all at the front of that. Not the cream coloured building, the more brown brick coloured building there. There's 2 doors that lead in for them to take stuff onto the sound stage, but that's where that was filmed there. So there you can see Elstree Studios in there, and as I said, I don't really want to be hanging around there too long with a camera, because they will come along and say you'll have to move along. They get very edgy when you're sort of like hanging around with cameras and all of that. So I'll take you down to the other point of interest now. Lucky I managed to get out and do this, because it was absolutely throwing it down earlier on in Borehamwood. I didn't think I would be able to get out and do this, so thankfully it's dried up now. So basically the Elstree Studios that you see here today, where they filmed the On the Buses films at, across the way there, it used to stretch all the way down, and there you can see the Tesco car park and the Tesco petrol station. It used to stretch all the way down near the studios, so it was vast. It was really massive compared to what it's like today. Now there was talk that when they were talking about saying, you can see from the top there, that's the 3 sound stages I was talking about in this building here, the brown coloured brown buildings, which is stages 5, 6 and 7, I do believe. They're all in this space along here. There was talk at one time in local council here that they were talking about actually bulldozing the whole studio complex. Which would have been really sad, because the man that fought to save what remains of the studio just passed away maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago. That was Paul Welsh. He fought so hard to save those studios. It would have been really sad if they had after his passing, they had went and knocked the rest of it down. It really would have been a real kick in the teeth, but thankfully that's not happening now. Obviously, the talk was they were going to knock it all down and build a cinema complex and a hotel on that land, but that's not happening now. So that's good news on that front. Okay, so heading away, and also as well across in this space here, there used to be an old cinema here that was locally known amongst the locals as lovingly called the Flea Pit. Obviously, you can imagine what sort of a building it was. It had like a fiberglass frontage. It made it look like a really grand building. You do see it if you look closely at it when you see Olive getting pointed in the direction of the family planning clinic. That's long since gone. That was demolished in I think not long after the film, so it would probably be mid to late 1970s. Somebody that's a Borehamwood regular will probably be able to correct me on that. So we're heading out down onto Brook Road now in Borehamwood, and I'll show you the next point of interest on the video. As I say, anybody's watching and they would like to contribute with a small donation, that's fine. Every penny helps. It goes back into funding these sorts of trips down to do these sorts of videos. So this is heading sort of like in a northerly direction now, sort of out of Borehamwood, where we're heading now. Yeah, no doubt about that, Anthony. I know she really loved working with our good pal Barbara Windsor as well on EastEnders. So over to our left is where we used to hold a lot of our On the Buses events. Round there you've got Fairway Hall, which is like a community centre. The town council are based there. That is basically where we used to hold the On the Buses events, just over there in Fairway Hall. A lot of the On the Buses events, not all of them, but a lot of them. So I want to try and get across the road here onto the other side of the road, but this road is really pretty busy. Right, so if you look there across that block of flats there, that's a block of flats that you see at the start of Mutiny on the Buses. You may remember Mutiny on the Buses when they're right at the very start. You see the cameras looking up and it looks across that block of flats, and it pans across to 2 buses parked back to back, which were parked down at the side of this house right at the bottom of the road here. And that was the start, and they sort of reverse it at the end of Mutiny on the Buses, where the camera pans back in again. Now, where the camera was perched for that was on top of Neptune House, which you can see there. They're preparing it for demolition, so that will soon be gone. So the camera was actually perched on top of that building there, Neptune House, which is actually in the BBC Elstree film studios. That's about to get demolished because they're transforming that into what will be known as the Douglas Fairbanks Studios. I think it's a French company that's bought over the land. So at least it is getting preserved as studios, but Neptune House was famous for, it used to be the if anyone remembers the old series of UFO, Shadow it was called, the organisation of UFO, that used to be they used that as the headquarters in UFO. They also, I think they used it in a series or two for the Holby Hospital and Casualty. And in Holby City, I think they might have used it as well. And it was also used, I think, for Grange Hill for a short time. So just walk on down here in this direction here to show you exactly where the two buses were parked up, to give you a good idea of how it actually looked. The houses haven't really changed around here of any great note, thankfully. And across there, for anyone who's football fans, you've got Borehamwood FC's football ground there, who have really sort of done really pretty well in the last few years. They had a good run in the FA Cup just recently, and they did get to win within one sort of like league of getting into actually becoming an actual full football league club. I'm not sure if they got relegated, but I think they're having a better season again now as well. So they have done, they've certainly risen up the ranks, Borehamwood have, in terms of football team-wise. I feel like Blakey here, I'm having to dodge all these cars splashing up the water from the puddles here. I feel like Blakey from the first film and the second film, which you used that scene in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross over the road again to try and give you a sort of angle from where the buses were actually parked. Of course, what you also see this stretch of road in as well, if you watch the end credits of On the Buses film, the bus is heading in this direction at the end, when they near towards the end of the closing credits, as the buses around this stage heading up in this direction, back up towards the studios again. So the buses would have been parked roughly around about at the side of this house here, but just about sort of like where the traffic island is there. I'll just stop opposite it so that you can have a look. And the weird thing is when they carried on the scene, that's where you see the two buses parked up. But later on, it's actually not there at all when you get to later on when Blakey's bus pulls up behind. It's actually a different road altogether. I would suggest that the reason for that was they maybe only had a limited time to film here, so they had to move from here and move it on round to our street that's round the corner here. So the buses would have been parked roughly around about here back, the two buses, at the start of Mutiny on the Buses. There's the flats over there that you see the camera pan around from, and there's Neptune House just over there, where the camera would have perched filming it. So the camera would have panned around, taken in flats, and then panned down to the two buses that were parked here at the start of Mutiny on the Buses. Okay, so I hope you've liked this little video here, a taster for the weekend coming up. And I'm hoping to do more videos over the weekend when I've got the chance. So I'm going to end there for now. That covers basically what I wanted to cover, the changes to the studios in Borehamwood. Some have been changes that have been in place for maybe about over 50 years, for the closure of the British MGM Studios. Some are just things that have happened just recently, like they're starting to demolish Neptune House within BBC Elstree Studios, and also just recently they announced that they're not going to now knock down the stages 5, 6 and 7 in the Elstree Studios where they filmed the On the Buses films. Okay, so hope you liked that video, and I hope to see you again over the next couple of days, 2-3 days, with more live videos. Okay, so I'll say goodbye for now.